Cleveland Browns have won 4 out of their last 5
All
games.
of my bobbleheads are officially throwback. This one's for you.
This is a big one for me. You know?
So how long ago was it? Was it 2016 when we won the NBA championship? How many coaches have we had since that point? John Beilein is out as the Cavs coach. JB Bickerstaff is in. And there's going to be some blame passed around. Man, the Cavs not... Is this a good thing that Beilein is gone? There's really no other direction they could move other than up after this start to the season. Eric, let's start with you this week. You know, you could pass the blame to a couple of different entities on this team. Is it Beilein? Is it Koby Altman? Is it the players who actually play these games? Who are you passing out the blame to?
Well, first of all, let me first say to not listen to the Thanksgiving podcast of this this recording, because I remember saying I was thankful for John Beilein, and that was obviously not the right answer. I'm sure I could have been thankful for a lot of other things, but yeah, so that was the wrong one. My bad. Back to the question. I see like a 60-40 split, but I got to go with the majority and say I put more blame on the players. I mean, to fault Beilein, apparently he didn't realize that the NBA is a players-driven league, that players can pretty much do whatever they want. They can stage protests. They can not listen to their coach. They can, do a lot of things that would kind of run the teams off the rails for the season, which when you're 14-40, you are off the rails. That being said, the Beilein, the slug thug comment, I mean, that he's got to own up to that. So a majority of his 40% that I place the blame on him is related to that comment and how he handled it or mishandled it. That looking at the players aspect, they chose to get frustrated. They chose to act childish. They chose to act like they're 13 instead of 31, as opposed to just, working with their coach and trying to play as hard as they can. Obviously they could have acted more mature with their response to the slug thug comments. It was kind of humorous, but regardless, that's still how they responded. I mean, there's not too many jobs in America where a whole group of people can get upset about their boss and their boss be the one fired, not those individuals. But that's the system the NBA is, and it's a player-driven league, and the players seem to have a lot of the power. So I'm gonna give them the fault. They're the ones that are kind of staging this act to get Beilein gone. Well, they got their way. Hopefully, the next guy, JB Bickerstaff, can work wonders, or at least kind of get the ball rolling towards mediocrity is what we're shooting for at this point. As far as Koby Altman's concerned, I don't fault him too much. I mean, I think he saw John Beilein be a good leader of men. He took a lot of underperforming, not five-star athletes in Michigan and took them pretty far, and they were a solid program year in and year out, and he did the same with West Virginia. He took a chance. It didn't work out. To try to change channels, I mean, looking at John Dorsey, he made a bad coach at a hire. I don't think that's the be-all, end-all. Koby Altman, assuming he did make the hire and it wasn't Dan Gilbert, I don't think that's a be-all, end-all for his reputation. I mean, people make bad hires all the time, or just their bad system fits. So, I wouldn't fault Koby for that. So, I guess that's where I stand, and it's unfortunate that he did not even last 82 games, but blame's all around, but I just hope JB Bickerstaff can, make things right starting Friday night. I didn't intend to rhyme, but here we are.
Yeah, maybe Beilein is the Michael Scott of the NBA with some of his comments to his employees there. But yeah, I also see it as being very convenient for a lot of the analysts that you'll see on TV. I think even Brian Windhorst, no one liked the Beilein hire. Looking back at Thanksgiving and at the beginning of the season, it did make some sense. A lot of young players who would be playing in college. John Beilein comes in, maybe brings some of that college rah-rah, but also education of the game to the team. Just did not work with some of the veterans. We'll see if any of those details of What was some of the unrest? We saw the unrest with Kevin Love out on the court. There was other stories of unrest at the beginning of the season. We'll see if some of those things come out now that Beilein is not the head coach. But Drew, what do you think about this tenure? Are you pinning all of this on Beilein?
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know what this world's gonna bring, but I know one thing, that this is the life for me, baby, 'cause I'm a thug. Yeah, I'm blaming him. You go back and you look at the Thanksgiving podcast, and I was right. I was in the same boat. I was excited about this hire too, right? This isn't this isn't one of us right, one of us wrong. We both liked the hire because of all the reasons that everybody just said. The programs he came from, he got the most out of the talent, and that's what you need from a head coach, somebody who gets the most out of the talent that you have. And this Cavs roster was the opposite of that. I don't think that this is the worst team in the league, but they sure look like it day in, day out for over half the season. A majority of these games are not watchable contests. When a team is going through something like this, what you want to see is progress, and you want to see close losses. You want to see fight. You want to see them playing as a team. And we didn't see any of that. There's none of that. At the beginning of this season, I think there was some hustle. I think they were tuning in. They were trying. But, yeah, as soon as he said that was it. They're going to tune that out, and they did. And, part of me wants to say rightfully so, but it wasn't working. And one of the one thing that I remember mentioning is, look, if this guy's heart is still in it, then I think this is a good hire. And, he requested to not coach anymore. I don't think you're going to see him coaching. Maybe he goes back to college if he wants to, clear his reputation or something. But I think this is very much sort of like a Mike Holmgren. It's going to go down, unfortunately, as a Mike Holmgren-esque type of a move, a guy that wanted one more big payday before his retirement. And that's too bad, because I don't think John Beilein is that type of a guy. I don't think he's that type of sleazebag Mike Holmgren style that's going to take a whole bunch of money and do no work. I think he did try. It was the wrong message for this group of people. And as soon as he dropped the "baby, 'cause I'm a thug" line, it was over, right? That's the end. They're going to tune, and then they tuned him out, and they played Trick Daddy, which holds a special place in our hearts. This was the one that that Ryan and I introduced to the tennis team back in 2002. That was the Take It to the House. Take It to the House. So for all you believers that were on the boys tennis team in 2002, you're welcome for that little Easter egg. But no, I think as soon as that comment came out, that it went from a situation where the team was underperforming to now the team flat out didn't like the coach. And in the NBA, if the players don't like you, if they don't respect you enough to listen to you, you're gone. And as you should be. It is a player-driven league, as Eric said. And, it's too bad. I think Beilein is a good coach. I think he's a good person. I don't think he went into this with the sort of ill intentions that Mike Holmgren did. But I think that's how we're unfortunately going to remember him, if we remember him at all, right? It'll be the I'm a thug reference, and it'll be one of those mashups like, do you remember when this guy was a Cleveland Cavalier, right? 10 years from now, he's going to be on the long list of players, that you vaguely remember, had a cup of coffee in Cleveland. And, so be it. I don't wish John Beilein any ill will, but, I think I think he had to go. I think they made it perfectly clear when he called the whole team thugs that they're not going to listen to you anymore. And so, yeah, I think they had to make the hire. I do not buy the Cavs story that all along it was supposed to be Beilein, and then he was like a babysitter for JB Bickerstaff the whole time, that this was the whole plan all along. No, it wasn't. But I think that I'm excited to see what Bickerstaff does. I hope he plays a little bit of YOLO ball for the rest of this year and tries to figure out a lineup that works well together. And maybe they start to have a little fun. And that's all I'm looking to see. I'd like to see this team have a little bit of fun out there on the court, because there has been zero fun has been had this whole season, as far as I can tell, from the players, the fans, the coaches, management, all around. This has been a really depressing team, and I'm hoping that changes now. Even if the win-loss total is not going to get a whole heck of a lot better.
Yeah, I don't like what Beilein did with the team. I liked him coming to the team. This has been a mess of a season, but I'm going to still put this blame on the players. It's a players' league. The players are on the court. These guys need to get the job done. I'm still shocked with how much talent is on this team, and they are not winning games. I still don't have an explanation as to why the Cavs are losing so many games. They have talented players on this team. We even picked up Andre Drummond. That's why we'll go to Eric here in a second, but I think there's going to be a pickup with JB Bickerstaff and this team to finish out the season. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I really expect them to come out of the break with a little more oomph, a little more pep in their step, trying to hit the ground running. The bad news is that they have a pretty daunting schedule coming out of the break. They got D.C. on Friday. They got a home-and-home with Miami. They play Philly and then at New Orleans. So that's a tough 5-game schedule to come out of the break. But, I expect them to play harder. I expect them to play smarter, and I assume they play more as a team. I maybe even steal a win or two within that 5 games, whereas you would ask me a week ago afterwards, I would probably say 0-5. So, I could see a little bit of progress, especially the first 2 weeks or so coming up. But as the season winds down, I don't expect that to continue. Maybe they get the 3rd or 4th worst record, which, would not help their draft stock. But I could see them, a minor improvement, but I don't see a huge turnaround. That would be good if that's the case, that they can turn this thing around and take it into next year. But I also want to get a number 1 overall pick, or at least as close to as possible. So, if nothing else, that should be something that I could get me to the TV and actually watch them on a somewhat consistent basis. We all remember Bernie, and hopefully his son does a good job of coaching just as well. The whole David Blatt thing, that didn't work out, and the guy after him won a championship. Not saying we're going to do that.
So we're going to win a championship.
Yes. Don't have as much talent, but the mid-season let go and kind of flipping the script as one person who is coming down too hard or coaching too hard to the more players coach. We're going again from a Greg Williams to a Freddie Kitchens as far as their styles are concerned.
The Browns have been making some subtle news with some of their free agency moves here, and many more moves to come, beside the Greg Robinson marijuana trafficking news that came out.
Good.
Man, Dorsey.
It's not bad. I mean, like they told him about.
It's like my weight in marijuana, but
But there's going to be a couple more decisions that Andrew Berry is going to be facing upcoming here. Who stays, who goes? Will there be more releases? So we got a couple of rapid fire questions here to figure out where the balance of what is really important for the Browns this offseason. And I think that really starts at is, who do you keep? Who is the biggest signing of this offseason that we need to re-sign? Is that going to be Joe Schobert, or is that going to be Kareem Hunt? Eric, let's start with you. Who are you going to take of those 2 players? You can only have the money for one of those guys to re-sign them. Who are you taking?
Well, with our gentleman's agreement that was discussed prior to the show.
I'm going to go ahead and take that question, actually. And I'm going to take Joe Schobert.
That's fine.
I'm going to take Joe Schobert on that one. And I have lots of reasons why I want that. Certainly the downside of this is going to be the money involved, and I'm going to let Eric get into why Hunt makes more sense based on that reason. I think Schobert's, as a middle linebacker, he's probably going to want over $10 million a year, maybe $12 million even a year, versus the value. So he's going to get into the value behind those two things and why we might prefer it the other way. But I think Joe Schobert's the flat out better player. Joe Schobert was a 2017 Pro Bowler, but the biggest reason that I want him back is I want a veteran calling the new defense. This is a new defense. This is it's not a huge change, but it is going to be new terminology, which they really haven't had in quite some time. Freddie kept the same type of verbiage, the same type of scheme, really, that Hugh had. So they've had the same defensive scheme, the same sort of schematic for over 3 years now, and they are going to be changing that. They're going to be changing how those formations are called. They're going to be changing what the base looks like. They're going to be changing their audibles. I would like to have a veteran doing that, someone who has called the defense before. But also, Joe Schobert's a really good player. Last year alone, he had over 130 tackles, 9 passes defensed, 4 interceptions. He's an elite coverage linebacker that is a sure tackler and can, contrary to what a lot of fans think, does make plays downhill, does tackle near the line of scrimmage when the front four does their job and keeps him clean. So he's a really good player, and I would really like to have him back. Eric will let us know why the money is not going to work.
Yeah, Eric, who you investing in over the next 5 years, Schobert or Hunt here?
Who am I investing in?
Yes.
I would probably have a different answer. Who I want the answer for the question. Let me try to argue for Kareem Hunt. Let's just say. Well, I guess Schobert would be dependent on Kirksey. So if they re-sign Kirksey, then Schobert, that could be a lot of money tied up within the linebacker position. Also, Kareem Hunt is a solid player who is on a very cheap deal. He's a restricted free agent who has had some missteps and therefore a cheaper option. I'm sure they could get a more team-friendly contract with a 2 or 3 years, and that would put him, 6 or 7 years within the league. I mean, I think that's pretty reasonable considering his position, where you see Ezekiel Elliott getting that big contract. You're seeing Adrian Peterson many moons ago get those big deals. So to have a solid backup at that position in a few $1 million a year is, unheard of kind of, but this is kind of a unique situation where he's kind of put himself in, but I think for the team's sake, they could use those resources elsewhere. So, I mean, like I had said many times in this podcast, and I'll say it again, those first 8 games where, Nick Chubb's backup was Dontrell Hilliard, I mean, the Browns were just kind of lost. I mean, the Seahawks game, he didn't single-handedly lose the game, but the game ended on his, flip up of interception. And I think Kareem Hunt is a capable enough back that is both good in the run game and the pass game that he can, help this offense tremendously. I did see something on TV, I think it was NFL Network, that Kareem Hunt was the 3rd leading receiver of the second half of the year. Granted, he had no receiving yards in the first half, but still in the second half, he was 3rd of all running backs. That's pretty impressive. So he does have that ability. He's got to go in the straight and narrow, not make any more mistakes. But hopefully, almost said Koby Altman. Hopefully, Andrew Berry has the same type of thoughts that John Dorsey has as far as giving guys second chances and kind of believing in their stories and giving them the benefit of the doubt, because he is a special talent, but he's got to be watched. But he's a cheaper guy, and if that could lead towards getting offensive linemen or other linebackers, defensive linemen in free agency, why not?
I'm no capologist, and I certainly have not gone to an Ivy League school. But I wonder if the franchise tag could come into
Ivy League.
Could we put the franchise tag on Schobert? I think he's going to receive a pretty penny this offseason. Yeah. We definitely need him to stick around. The Browns are ready to peak. This was a bad year, but the Browns are still ready to peak. We got to keep this team together. We cannot slash the payroll. We need to keep adding. Please keep Schobert and keep Hunt, but that would be cheating this question. So let's move into the next question. The next one, Christian Kirksey. He has a contract, but has been subject to rumors of being potentially released. I think, like you guys mentioned, could be in play with what we do with Joe Schobert. So we've got Christian Kirksey. If you can either take him or Rashard Higgins, who are you going to take into the next season? Eric, how about you start this one?
Well, I think I'm going to be walking the red carpet on that one. Christian Kirksey is making just under $10 million a year this year, and then his contract for next year would be, I think it's close to $12 million. He's played 9 games over the past 2 seasons. Once you start getting further and further out in your career, the injuries kind of just pile up. I would prefer if they could keep him in some capacity, but he's got to restructure the contract, and I don't see the Browns being like a Patriots organization or a Ravens that, kind of take that hometown discount to try to win that ring. So I don't expect him with the team. That said, I expect either a release or a trade. Maybe they can get something for him because he's still with the team for now. Higgins, his to the Browns' benefit, his value diminished because of the mismanagement of him and his role by Freddie Kitchens and this offense of last year. So, I think we could get him on a pretty, kind of like I said about Kareem Hunt, you can get him on a pretty cheap contract, or cheap relatively, for a third wide receiver for this league. And I think he would work well with, Baker Mayfield. He obviously has that rapport with him. I think he's got a pretty good rapport with OBJ and Jarvis as well. Stefanski's offense does feature a lot of 2 tight ends and 2 receivers. Doesn't mean you can't have a good third receiver as well for depth purposes. I mean, you're not going to have OBJ and Jarvis Landry play every single snap of the offense.
I didn't take your argument.
Sorry. Well, I guess I'll wrap that up. But he's got familiarity with this room. He's got when I say this room, I mean the wide receiver position. He's got familiarity with the quarterback, and I think he needed a change. And fortunately, the change happened to his coach by being removed from this team. And I think he can get back to business and do a good job for this team.
Yeah, but I don't know if either of these guys make the roster next year, Drew. Or do you think either one is going to be gone? Or stay?
Yes. Yes, I do. I'm going to make an argument here for Christian Kirksey. His salary cap number is $9.95 million, and that is a high number. And I understand that the 2018 and 2019 seasons, he has been injured. I get that. Some of the best ability is durability, right? The ability to play, and he has not had that. Here's my argument for why I'd like to see him back, and it is that he is flat out, when healthy, he is a better player than Mack Wilson, period. Full stop. Mack Wilson took, and he was a rookie, right? So I'm going to give him a break. But if I'm saying, I have to start 2 linebackers tomorrow to take on the Ravens, to take on the Steelers, to take on the Chiefs, whoever it might be, I want Christian Kirksey out there because he is a better player. He had this is a guy that in 2016 and 2017, alert. Full disclosure, best player on a terrible team, but he made 286 tackles combined in those 2 seasons, right? He is a good player. He is a sure tackler. He takes the proper angles. He doesn't get sucked into these play-action fakes and leave massive holes. He is a good veteran linebacker that still gives you speed, sideline to sideline, and he is somebody that I think still has at least a year or 2 of really good football left. So I would love to see Kirksey and Schobert as my starting linebackers, and then you still give Mack Wilson enough room, enough reps, and you have Taki to back up Schobert should something happen to him. That's depth, right? And to take a page out of the MS Excel regime, you're not paying up for depth because Kirksey is a better player. Kirksey's your starter, and you have $57 million in cap space. The other argument that I have, that Eric has already told you, is that the Stefanski offense is, there's not as many 3 and 4 wide sets. It's still an NFL offense. There's still going to be plenty of room for a slot receiver, and Hollywood Higgins is a very good one of those. But this draft, if we can talk about the draft,
we'll get there.
Is deep at that type of a player. The one I really like is Hamler from Penn State. I think he's going to be an exceptional slot receiver who I think might still be available in that 3rd round. So, if they were to lose Higgins, if somebody wants to give Hollywood Higgins $6 or $7 million a year, I think they can replace his talents with a Hamler, right? I think if he agrees to the $3 to $4 million a year range, that the Browns should absolutely have him back. That's sort of the value that my make-believe Sashi Brown, Andrew Berry 2.0 spreadsheet, that's what my spreadsheet says. But I know they don't like to pay for depth, and that is what Higgins would be.
Yeah, I liked how John Dorsey, we saw TJ Carey leave the team. I like how he had depth at those positions because things go wrong. Things go wrong at linebacker, at corner. We saw Denzel Ward getting injured. It's nice to have that depth, and it's a little bit scary to see that depth leaving us, but there's some options to get some signings here. So we are inching towards the draft, but we're sprinting into another XFL weekend, boys.
Here we go.
I've got my XFL DC Defenders football all ready, and we are going to get our bag of money on here with the games this weekend. Starting off on Saturday, we've got the Houston Roughnecks, the Tampa Bay Vipers. We've got the Dallas Renegades against the Seattle Dragons. On Sunday, we've got the New York Guardians, the St. Louis Battlehawks, the DC Defenders, the LA Wildcats. You've got all those games this weekend. Eric, let's start off with you. Who are you picking? What's the pick of the weekend for the XFL?
Okay. I like my lock is the I'm going with the Roughnecks. I think they're going to go to 3-0, laying
nice.
6.5 at Tampa Bay. I think with all this Astro news, I think they're coming out to say, hey, we're the real team of Houston. We're the real professional team everybody loves in the city of Houston. So they had a pretty entertaining game last week. They kind of let the lead slip away a little bit, but they held on at the end, and I think Tampa Bay does not have a lot of good players on their team, regardless of where the game is played. So I think Houston should handle them pretty easily.
Drew, free bag of money. Lay it on us.
It's a free bag of money. There's, when there's only 4 games, sometimes this happens. The free bag of money. PJ Walker, one of the best quarterbacks in the XFL, the guy that Andrew Luck told Oliver Luck, you have to go get this guy. I wish Andrew Luck had told him what a professional football game in Los Angeles looks like, to have that team in Canton, Ohio. We're going to bang that drum relentlessly until we make that happen. But I'm going to take PJ Walker. I'm going to take this is a fun team to watch, right? Like I really like the XFL. I have an old XFL poster, the original 2001 version. Still in my at my dad's house back home in Canton. So I really like watching these games, and PJ Walker is an NFL caliber player. There are 2 quarterbacks I think that are NFL caliber. I'm talking backup level, obviously. And those are 12 gauge and PJ Walker. And I've given you the Defenders the last 2 weeks. And I really like PJ Walker and the Houston Roughnecks. The fact that you can get this game for under a touchdown. Tampa Bay, I think, is the worst team in the league. New York is way worse than I thought they would be. But Tampa Bay, I think, is the worst team in the league. And so if you can get that spread for under 7, which is an important line in the XFL with all these 1 and 2 point conversions that they don't hit. but I still like it at 7. I'm seeing it 6.5. So we're going to take this free bag of money. Go ahead and put some money on P.J. Walker and the Houston Roughnecks, and we'll see you next week when you cash that ticket.
Yeah, I'm going to go with my new favorite team, the DC Defenders. It feels good to be a part of a winning franchise here with Cardale Jones.
Sure, they've just been printing money 2 weeks in a row, printing money. So
I'm going to go with the Defenders, -7.5 last time I checked here. So I'm going with the Defenders. Should be another fun weekend. I'll be watching. These guys will be watching. We'll be banging that trash can for the start of the baseball season. We'll be talking some Indians here soon, and maybe one day we'll talk some NFL draft, Drew.
One day. What?
We'll slot
April
it in
19th, we'll be talking about it.
Thank you guys for joining. Another fun one. We'll talk to you again real soon.
All right. Talk to you later.
Keep on believing.
That's right.